We're back with our conversation about school choice and vouchers, a plan that Tennessee Governor Bill Lee fully supports and is pushing in the legislature. We are hearing from more than a half dozen East Tennessee school leaders this morning. Let's listen to more about accountability with this new plan.
It's a double standard. Private schools do not have to use all the state approved and mandated instructional materials. They can select what they would like to add with that. They do not have to have the end of year testing, the 10 ready test. They do not have to adhere to the third grade retention rate. They do not have to worry about the fourth grade adequate growth and multiple other accountability measures. Whereas public schools are bombarded with accountability at every turn.
Accountability in an elementary school, they tell us how many minutes a student has to do PE every day. They tell us how many minutes they have math, how English. There's so much of that accountability that we have to deal with that has nothing to do with the test. But again, when you go to a private school, they can do whatever they want to. It's one thing, is the parent happy? If the parent happy, they're going to take their money there. If they're not, they're going to take it somewhere else. And I think that's the biggest deal.
Yeah. And I think, accountability, like I said, it's crazy right now. The amount of accountability that is put on is not only for the academic performance of the kids, but we're held accountable for their attendance, and we're judged, and that's part of our accountability report and our school designations, whether or not we get the good enough attendance rate, and and that's somewhat out of our control. Parent choice is parent choice, and if they choose not to push their kid to come to school, it's very hard for us to make that happen. And so, just the idea that we hear from lawmakers all the time, education is the biggest investment we have from taxpayer money, and we need to make sure that we're getting bang for our buck. And then to take millions, and the idea that they would then give that to private schools, and then throw their hands up and say, no, we're not going to worry about the accountability for those taxpayer dollars. To me, if we have a state curriculum, we have state standards, the state has said this is what kids ought to be able to master at each grade. Wherever taxpayer money goes, they ought to be held to those standards and have to show those same measures.
Your perspective.
And even when you think about when they talk about the time, that's another thing. When they say every minute of our day is scheduled, it is literally every minute of our day. And it goes back to what Ms. Fields said about our teachers. Yes, they're leaving in droves. Well, there's a reason for that. You can talk to our teachers. They're like, well, I didn't get lunch today. I didn't get a bathroom break today. And that's the reality of what we live in. It really is. And the difference is, in a private school, and again, this is nothing against private schools, but they have the opportunity to attend school 5.5 hours, and then they may go do some sort of extracurricular activity, that's completely outside of anything that we are allowed to do. And so how is that fair? And then obviously the letter grades and some of the things that have come down on us, which, in my opinion is not valid, but they have absolutely none of that they have to account for. They talked about attendance, test. They don't take anything that we do. And so they don't understand, I don't think parents truly understand what is happening in public ed. And again, it is the top down.
When you look at our current State Department of Education and a lot of the programs that have been rolled out, all of them seem to be adapted from another state, not our own. And we tend to get folks from that state to push the initiatives that we want pushed. Our TISA, our new funding formula, straight out of Texas, vouchers, really kind of straight out of Texas. And I have not had a personal call or a personal conversation with our new Commissioner of Education, but again, has never been in public education.
I want you to raise your hand if you have any private schools in the districts that you represent. Yes or no? So none of you have private schools. Okay.
So critics and skeptics from day one, after Governor Lee hinted at this, have said accountability is going to be one of the big hurdles they're going to have to get over. they obviously feel that way, and they say basically private schools can do whatever they want. Don, what are your thoughts about, I'm curious what you think about in terms of what really will be done about that, what kind of confidence level you have in the next few months?
Well, I have a very low confidence level because I think, wherever you have, quote, free money, you're going to find graft. You're going to find ineptitude. You're going to find people taking advantage of the system. So whether it's the parent that wants to take the money to homeschool their child that really isn't doing the job, or whether it's the individual that says, we're going to start our own, quote, private school, and we're going to cater to those parents that, we want to take that $7,900 or whatever that voucher amount is, and we're not really going to worry about attendance, about teaching math. If Johnny doesn't want to take science, we'll let Johnny go out and play soccer, so he's not disruptive. And I'm just really, really afraid that this is going to run amok. And we're not talking about the Webbs and the ESKs and the Catholic high schools that we see in Knoxville. We're talking about potentially smaller schools being formed. None of these counties have private schools. Not a single one of these districts. I bet you if voucher money comes, we're going to see a bunch sprout up, and they're going to be very questionable.
Susan, we got about a minute.
Okay. Obviously, we all should worry about the accountability and the fact that we haven't seen the details in the governor's plan. I don't want to get too far ahead on that, but obviously they need to be accountable if they're taking money. I just want to respond to one thing that one of the superintendents said, the 5.5 hours. I've not found that. I think teachers at private schools teach full days. And she talked about some days she didn't get a lunch break. Well, I don't either in my work. If you work
unless
hard,
you're at the beach.
there are some days you don't get lunch breaks. And that's part of it. That's part of being dedicated. And teachers have a very difficult job. There's no doubt about it. But that's part of it. And I think we've got good professional people teaching, and I think they should be paid more for what they do.
All right, we're going to be back with more on the message those school leaders have for Tennessee Governor Bill Lee right after this.